Hi, I'm Laurie from To the Trade for Interior Design Community, and I have some special guests, Mark and Corey. Hi, Mark. Hi, Corey.
Oh, Laurie. So,
Hey there.
so nice
So
to be with you today.
I know it's very exciting. So you both work for Designer Advantage, which is a procurement tool and accounting software for interior designers. And we met, I would say, a few months ago, and I was pretty blown away by some of the data you shared with me and asked you to be on the podcast so that you could kind of give designers an overview about what you do. But I want to start with a little introduction. Mark, you founded this company. Tell me a little bit about you and why you did this.
Sure. Well, I grew up in the Midwest and I came out east to go to Boston College. And I was an accounting major there, met my wife there. I worked at Ernst& Young for about 5 years in the Boston office where I got my CPA. And in my fifth year, I was driving down the road. I can still remember it. And it was like I got hit by a bolt of lightning. I knew I wanted to start my own business, started looking in different ideas. My mentor put me in touch with the owner of a trade-only lighting manufacturing company. And we met and we had some similar ideas. But anyways, together we came up with this idea and helping designers run a, a more efficient and profitable back office. He recognized in selling lamps to designers how difficult of a back office this is. So when I did my research, I was blown away. And to this day, I still don't think there's a more complicated back office to run in the United States than the interior design back office. It is so complex and difficult. And I thought using my background in accounting and process, that this is a need that I could fulfill. And so I quit my job, raised some capital, and here we are 25 years later.
I think that is remarkable, and I agree with you. It is such a complicated back office and the power imbalance too with these clients that have so
Yes.
much more financial means than the designer. It's kind of
Yeah.
like scary because so much of it is not really within their control. I mean, they can only do so much, and I think it's a really difficult situation for them.
Yeah.
What are some like key challenges you've observed in the interior design industry that led you to think this was the solution?
Well, first of all, in my initial research, while I was determining what I wanted to do, I realized that designers were spending almost 90% of their time on administration. And 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 that is the type of work that they weren't trained to do in business in school, and it's what they don't want to do. So when you dive in deep to that, it really comes down to the purchasing. It's managing the purchasing is so complex, and we realize that managing one custom order can take over 100 separate steps. Multiply that times 200 orders in a house. That's 20,000 steps,
Right.
right? And so what I dedicated my life to with Corey and our amazing management team is how do we convert those steps into a more efficient process, either through software and just process re-engineering and just getting each task done at the lowest possible cost and the highest possible speed. And we just have been chipping away at it for years. And we've just built up this amazing system from being in the trenches with the designers every day, right? So we're learning what the problems are and then we're updating our software to address those inefficiencies. So it's just been a very long journey, but it's been such a pleasure, working with our clients and it feels good to satisfy this need, right? We know that they don't want to be doing this. It's costing them money. So it really is just there's just so much room for improvement that it just feels good. We really enjoy solving this problem.
I love it because I do know, I talk to designers all the time, and when I do this podcast, I have this line that I say often because it's so true is that there's a designer probably tonight not going to bed tonight because they're so
Yeah.
afraid to tell a client tomorrow this terrible news that they just found out. And part
Yeah.
of that is the process. It's
It's
just
the
that
process.
is sometimes what
Right.
they're dealing with it because they can't control if it comes in broken. They can't control if the tile guy set the
So
tile
true.
correctly. There's just so much out of their control despite having some of them have an amazing process and some of them are brand new and that they're
Right.
figuring that out. It's just
Right.
it's very interesting. Could you describe both of your roles within the company and how you collaborate with design professionals?
Sure. Corey, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, Laura, thank you so much for having us on today. It's a pleasure to be with you. But yeah, so I'm the director of sales at Designer Advantage, and my role is really to speak with as many designers as I can and educate them on the best way to run their business. And we know that every business is different, and each design firm has different aspects that go into their day to day. We really call it the business of exceptions. We know that, there's something new every single day that a designer can come across that, we like to think in our 25 years, we've seen a lot of it. But it's a difficult business to run, like Mark alluded to. But I take a lot of pride and pleasure in meeting new designers every day and learning their story and, really figuring out what their pain points are and how we can fit into their operation. It's been fun. I've been with Designer Advantage for 10 and a half years, and I've seen us grow a lot over the years. We were, a small team of 10 when I started, and I think we're up to 65 or 70 full-time team members at this point. So, we've really taken off. We've helped a lot of designers over the years. And my background is in the bookkeeping and the accounting side. And I still do work with a couple of designers on the bookkeeping side intentionally, because I like to see some of the new services that we offer and how we can help designers communicate
That's
that
really
to the
smart.
industry as a
That's
whole.
really smart that you're doing that because that will keep you
Mhm.
sharp about what it is that the designers are actually struggling with, as the market itself evolves and technology changes. If you're selling it, you better know how to use it. What
Without a
ways
doubt. Yeah,
are
without a doubt. And I think the other piece too is that it's very relationship driven.
Oh yeah.
The account managers that we have, they've really formed strong relationships with the clients, the designers that we work with, just like a designer would with their clients or with their vendors. And, these are two designers that I've worked with now for years, and I can't let them go.
No.
I love working with them. So it's, I think a lot of our account managers feel the same way.
I think that that's really, really exciting. How do you think that Designer Advantage separates themselves from the other, people are going to sort of pigeonhole you into project management is what I'm thinking because
Yeah.
they're thinking that's what that is. But it's very different.
Yeah.
You're project management, but you're also financial management for the bookkeeping side of a designer's business. How
Right.
do you think beyond that separates you from all of the other products out there? And how is that actually helping a designer save time and money?
Yeah. So basically, we provide a comprehensive solution that helps them on the financial side and the operational side. But then we bring a third component that I think our clients really value, which are business best practices and data.
Ooh, yeah.
So in addition to our services saving them money on labor, right? We help them improve their bottom line by taking our business data and business best practice, helping them implement those business best practices. That's where we can have a real dramatic impact on their bottom line. So, and we feel that by the nature of what we've been doing for 25 years, that we've accumulated more knowledge and experience than anyone else in the industry. So when you combined, again, these services with the software, the best practices, all that together, we feel that we can really have an impact on a designer's profitability and overall quality of life.
Yeah. I mean, well, I love a few things just from there, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to break that down a little bit because the first part of it that I thought is very interesting is that you have a deep overview. And Corey and I kind of had a great talk. So I got a little sneak peek into some of what you do. And you do have this way of really I mean, designers are being very vulnerable with you. They're sharing who they're buying from, every
Yeah.
step of how that
Sure.
happens,
Sure.
what they're making, every part of their financial life in their business.
Mm.
And then that quality of life piece, the peace of mind that someone
Yes.
has their back on that end and that
Yeah.
can fight for them on that end, so that they know that they're not in this alone is
Yes.
incredibly empowering to a designer, because sometimes you need someone else to fight for you because
Right.
they can say it in a different way. Like, you're only representing yourself as a design business, but
Right.
Designer Advantage is representing many designers. And so
Right.
the power of negotiation with the brands would be
Right.
greater to say, hey, look, this is wrong. This isn't happening to every single client. So obviously
Right.
we need to make this right for this designer. I would think that would be incredibly powerful for the designers and giving them that peace of mind.
Yeah. I think that's right. And, the peace of mind is really a phrase that we talk about a lot internally because, as you had mentioned, our designers are working with, really successful, high powered people. And this is the one industry where 99.99% accuracy is a failing grade, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's great. Like, so you have thousands of financial variables and operational variables that are going on, and it has to be perfect. And they expect perfection. So, I mean, it's such a daunting task. And that's why we've spent our lives and careers building internal controls. That's really the invisible asset that we have, our internal controls, things that prevent bombs from going off.
right.
Everything we do is proactive on the financial side and operations. We're thinking, how do we prevent a surprise or a bomb going off, right? And we've seen just about everything of those 25 years. So we've learned how to avoid mistakes by, initially making one, and then we learn from that, put in a control, and then we'll never make that mistake again, right? So it
Sure.
really comes down to 25 years of learning and evolving with the time. But ultimately, we want our designers to sleep well at night. We want them to know that all of these tens of thousands of variables that are in process going on, that they're all accounted for, and they're in a system that they can trust, and they're with people they can trust, right?
Yeah.
And if the trust isn't there, then we're of no value. But we've been able to build trust by delivering accurate results over many times. And I think, we're accountable. We're accountable for our work, and integrity is everything to us. And, I think those points combined really have
Oh,
helped us develop some great relationships.
I love how passionate you are about this, because I'm equally as passionate about designers having a good work-life balance, having
Right.
good stress management skills, having, financial, success so that they can,
Yeah.
retire and they can
Yes.
do all the things we need to do
Exactly.
in their personal lives, and that those are
Exactly.
things that are not easy won
Yeah.
here in the
It's
interior
correct.
design industry. So I love
Yeah,
hearing
and
about this.
I also think it extends to a business owners, a designer's employees too. Like a lot of these designers, by nature, they're creative people and they don't want to be doing these administrative tasks. They're necessary. They need to get completed for the project to be successful. But designers don't want to do it. And so to find someone who wants to do it and to
Right.
find someone who's good at it and invested a lot of time and money in perfecting the process of those administrative tasks, it increases the quality of life for the business owner, but their employees as well, just the general team morale. We've seen a lot of the design firms we work with, their team morale goes way up because they're offloading some of
Right.
these administrative
Right,
tasks.
right. And also to a company that has I mean, you're in a unique position because one designer who works with you could have a problem, and that could change your process that will benefit all of the designers that work
That's
with you.
that's absolutely the case. Whenever we fix one problem for one designer, it's going to help everyone.
Sure.
And imagine 25 years of that.
Right.
And like Corey said, it's a business of exceptions.
Yes.
There are curveballs every single day, and and just being able to handle those curveballs, it's really challenging. But again, I think it's by doing this so long and working with, so many designers, we have a unique perspective on that.
Well, you also seem to very much care about it, and there are a lot of
Yeah.
companies that have built successful businesses in this
Right.
industry and thought of interior designers as a market, but
Right.
not really fully understanding the designer themselves, and or even really understanding how this impacts their own health and wellness for the
Yes.
designer themselves. That's the reason we started this podcast, was because in
Sure.
2020 we had done a video back when we first started. We were on Google Plus, so we used to do a video hangout years ago, and I knew the time commitment that went along with it.
Yeah.
But and I knew that there were a lot of great podcasts out there. But in 2020, we saw designers saying overwhelmingly that they were feeling burned out over and
Sure.
over again. And so that's why we really started this podcast, was because we wanted to
Right.
address that need in designers to learn some information that would let them like sleep well at night, let them,
Mm.
have a great work-life balance. So this completely aligns with our goals for our podcast. Couldn't be more perfect.
I
Um,
can't.
how do you think that, like, let's boil it down. How do you think that the designer advantage helps designers improve their profitability?
Yes. So there are two ways that we can do that. One is that our bookkeeping services and our project management services are the lowest cost of any service in the industry. So when you come to us, you're going to save money on your fees. So that's one immediate way that we can improve the bottom line. The second way is those best practices and data. So for example, um, time billing is a standard component of an interior design business. And we have best practices on time billing. And we know that from our data that the best practice for time billing is for a designer to be in the 20 to 30% of their total gross revenue. That's what they should be billing in time-based fees for their clients. If they're a high end, and this can vary by region, but generally speaking, 20 to 30% is the range. Now, what happens a lot of times is when we onboard a client, we'll immediately look at what that ratio is and see that maybe it's 10 or 15%. And then that's an opportunity, right? Those are opportunities for us to share with us the best practices of time billing. And in this particular example, the best practice says that employees should be billing about 80% of hours worked on projects, and the principals should be billing 50% of their time on projects. And that, I'm sorry, of their total time. Principals
Sure.
50% of their total time, 80% of total time for employees. And if you hit those ratios, right, you're going to end up in the 20 to 30% range every single time,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So we've been able to use statistics like that to highlight areas for improvement. And it's based on real data, right?
Sure.
We know that this isn't some concept that we came up in a boardroom that says you should be 20 to 30%. These are statistics that are being executed by designers all over the country.
Sure.
So as for this particular example, if you were to go from 15% to 25%, 10%, you do 10% on $1 million business, that's 100,000. $3 million business, that's 300,000 of additional profit. So, at 500,000, that's 50,000 in profits. Those are real numbers. And that's just one example of how we can use our data and best practices to help our designers really significantly improve their bottom line.
I want to go off script because I have questions for you, but your answer just gave me a question.
Okay,
Uh, so what I'm guessing is that a designer comes in very first time working with you,
yes.
that they start the first project. If their numbers are off based
Yep.
on what you
Mhm.
see generally around, for all of your clients, the first job of the person who's working with them is to educate that designer about changing their model pretty much drastically so that they can be aligned with what everyone else is charging so they can make a much more profitable business. Because I will tell you, I know designers who've been in this business 20, 30 years that haven't examined their books to know if they're actually making money. Like
Right.
their employees are being paid, they're scraping by.
Right.
Are they really making the profit that they should be
Right.
making? They
Right.
don't know because they can't compare their books to anyone else's.
You nailed it. I mean, if you can't compare your numbers to other firms, then you're never going to know if you're maximizing or missing out on profits, right? That's why we feel we're in such an amazing position to do these. We call them peer comparison financial reports. We put our designers' P&L side by side with 5 other firms of similar size and geography. And just by doing that, you can imagine
Sure.
it just says, your expenses are too high or this is too low immediately. So typically, when we work the designer, there are different teams that work with each client. We've got a bookkeeping team, we've got a purchasing team, and then I become kind of like the CFO. I don't charge for my work. I am available to our clients 24/7. Everyone has my cell. If you're in pain, I'm in pain. That's what we tell our designers, right? And if you're stressed, call me. Let's talk about it. Chances are I've probably seen this before, but I, I want to know when our designers in pain, they know they can get in touch with me. And I'm the one that really spends the most time in helping them on their numbers and getting them in line with best practices. Our day-to-day bookkeepers and purchasing, they've got to focus on the accuracy and getting those right. So we want them hyper-focused on that, where myself, Corey, and our 2 vice presidents, we're the ones that spend more time talking high level about their numbers and strategy and ways that they can compete. That way, our designers have a whole army of people helping them at a high level and in the details, helping
Sure.
them maximize their profits.
So they would go to you, a typical designer would come to you, they're saying, "Look, I want to do a show house. I want
Yes.
to do a
Yes.
book deal. I want,"
Yes.
and we're talking all things that people think are really, really great marketing ideas, but also cost money. So, like,
Yes.
I want to do a big,
Yeah.
um, I want to do a product line and have a licensing
Yeah.
line. They're coming to you first
Yes.
before they go see the brand,
Well,
before they get an attorney, before they start talking to a PR agency. They should be coming to you and talking to you first.
we encourage them to come to me, and I'm always available for them. So, and we, again, we have more information on those types of questions than anyone, and that's what I reserve my time for, those questions, so that they can reach out to me anytime
That's
with
so
any
high
business.
level. That is, I mean, that is such a high level because it's not just financial advice. It's not just bookkeeping. It's not just account
Right.
management. It's business strategy.
It's strategy and
Yes.
and my background as a CPA combined with that, again, the 25 years of looking at thousands of financial statements for designers, right? We
Right.
can provide instant solutions to big problems and help make really smart decisions simply by just being around and being around it. And I've seen what happens with when you start a product line. We have had clients, a lot of them have tried to start product lines. So we know what that looks like. Is it successful? Do clients make money? Is it worth trying that? Those are just one of so many examples that we see our clients try and we see what the result is. So,
Right.
so we're in a unique position there.
Do you ever, now you're very analytical people,
Yes.
uh,
Very
very analytical people,
highly
but do you ever understand the emotional component to
Oh,
that too and have that ego part of it and
yes.
do you
So,
get that?
I
oh my
was
gosh, that
I was
takes,
just going to speak to that
yeah, it's a
because
huge,
I mean, I think designers need a pat on the back every once in a
They
while
do.
too,
It's
and
very
mm,
isolating work and they want to be told we're doing
it,
a
it
good job.
really is.
definitely.
And they're getting beat up by their clients. And so, something we take pride into is when we do those peer analysis reports, every design firm has something that they're doing well. And so we want to,
That,
we're going to point out
yes,
the opportunities of where you can improve. But, maybe this is dangerous too. Sometimes designers, their billing rates are good and they're actually making, a good profit on their hourly billing, but they start getting nervous because am I billing too much to my clients?
Right.
So what we can do is we can say, no, you're not billing too much. It's great what you're doing right now. Keep that up. It's the industry standard to bill that amount of time. And it just kind of reassures them that what they're doing and what they're doing well is not, they're not ripping the clients off or anything. They're just running a good business. So we do like to pat our clients on the back when
Yeah.
they're doing something well.
Do you have
Yeah.
a system within to so I just a case just came up across my desk a couple of weeks ago where a designer was sued by a professional baseball player who she didn't have the best contract, I don't think. And I think that she was maybe a little vague in the conversations that she had with the client about how much they were paying. They were kind of under the impression they were going to get all the furniture at cost. And so they
Interesting.
are suing her for I think $750,000. And she's a mom of two.
Wow.
She is,
Wow.
she's a young designer, and financially already she's investing a lot in the attorney fees.
Yeah.
And do you coach a little bit about how they communicate off book too, like out of the contract, out of the paperwork? Like, you really can't say, I'm gonna make sure, it's just beyond this, it's gonna be the furniture cost. Sometimes we always, I think, as business people, we aren't, these designers are not trained in sales. They're not trained
Right.
in accounting. They're not trained in law. And
Right.
so they will use minimizing language sometimes, and
Right.
or talk
Right.
to one decision maker and not both decision makers. I mean, a lot of this stuff creates some of the problems that they have to deal with when it comes to an argument standpoint.
Sure. Sure.
How are you working with them beyond the nuts and bolts on also business practices that you can't write down, the conversation part?
Yeah. So, I think um, I have a lot of discussions with our clients about this. And what we found is that at the beginning of a project, y- just being transparent and upfront with all the things that can go wrong
Right.
and addressing them before they happen. And these things could be, for example, um, the client might find something cheaper through one of their sources than the designer, or the end client again, just, oh, I just want to buy these three things on my own account, right? Think questions like that are really uncomfortable that
Yes.
come
Yeah.
up during job. They're really uncomfortable. The other ones is, shipping bills sometimes come in after the installation, right? And then the designer has to say, do I eat that or do I send that? And we try to take all those things that can go wrong and create discomfort, have those in an upfront conversation before the job starts. So you're diffusing the bomb before you can even go off.
Do you give them like a checklist here? These are the things you need to say.
Yeah.
These are the things you warn your
Yes.
client about this.
Yeah. So typically, I would review their contract, and that's where that discussion would arise. And that's so, we these discussions come at different times, but depending on when and how they reach out to me. But yeah, typically up front when I'm reviewing the client, that's when I really try to share with them again things that could go wrong. And this is a referral business, right? So every designer is dependent upon referrals for their future success. So anything that you can do to diffuse those bombs and ensure that your client leaves happy and satisfied, that's a big deal. And I do work with our clients a lot on how to resolve things that go wrong. How do
Right.
I handle this situation? How do I make this right with my client? And those are really important things. Again, things are going to go wrong on every job. It's guaranteed. As
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
mentioned, there
Right.
are thousands of variables. Things are going to go wrong outside of the control. So knowing how to deal with that, how to present it in such a way that everyone feels, good and feels that it was a reasonable response. That's what I'm available for those calls to help those at those situations because it could be so stressful when those things go wrong, and it's
It is.
it's scary when the client gets mad
Oh, it
Um,
always and there isn't a project where the client doesn't get mad. I mean, I think that's the
exactly.
thing
It's
is that
part of the job.
it's part of like it's a very emotional process to do a
Yes.
remodel. I mean, I would say commercial designers have it a little bit easier because it's not your private space, but this is somebody's house. And of
Great.
course they're going to have an
Right.
emotional component to that. And
Right.
I've even, we'll go into this next question about technology and innovation, but I think AI is an interesting solution for some of this because I've even cautioned designers to utilize AI for, they get that internal email, they read like that first sentence, they already know the client's really pissed. Take the
Yes.
email, put it into ChatGPT and have it
Yes.
reword it in a friendly tone so that
Yes.
you're reading that and responding to that and say, I understand you're frustrated, da da da. And then but even to manage what is coming into your brain so that
Right.
bullet point actionable items versus the emotional language that everybody
Right.
feels but really doesn't need to be addressed. I mean, it's just
Right.
and you in some ways, I'm told this to designers as an AI hack, but you are that for them too. Like it's okay. Everyone had gone through this. I'll
Yes.
hold your hand through this horrible
Yeah.
experience. You're gonna be fine.
There's one example I'd like to provide that I talk to our clients about all the time, and I think it's one of the most important things for designers to think about with their business. And basically, I encourage all of our clients to break their clients down into three categories: A, B, or C clients. A's and B's are reasonable people. They want you to do well. They care about you making a good living, but they want a reasonable fee, but they're generally interested in both parties doing well. They're reasonable people, right? And then you've got the C clients are the clients that just want a deal. They see you as just a way to save money,
Right.
and they don't care that about you making money. They
Right.
think in their mind, they're thinking, you know, this is all too much money and this doesn't make any sense. And by the way, C clients can be billionaires. It
Right.
just because they,
Right.
I, the stories that I've seen over the years of just extraordinarily wealthy people, just really not being fair, nice, and they don't value the designer. Those C clients, you have to know, you have to put them in a different category and know that they're not reasonable. So therefore, don't let them hurt you.
Right.
Because they're the ones
I
that
love
make
that advice.
well,
That is great advice.
right? Because their opinion doesn't count because they're not reasonable. They're not real clients.
Right.
And they're the ones you're charging too much. Why do you do a 30% markup or why are you billing me for, these three things, right? No matter what you do, the more you try to placate them, it's almost like the worse it gets. So it's so you can pour your heart and soul into these C clients, and it really drains your energy, your confidence, and then that impacts how you are with your employees.
Your
It has an
creativity.
incredible impact
All
on
of
their
it. All of
overall
it.
business, right?
And your life, your whole life, your
Your whole
family life,
life, right?
yeah.
Whole life. So the majority of problems that I see are with C clients.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
where, and I'm sure our listeners here, when you put your clients in categories, I bet if you look at the ones that are most problematic, they're probably the C clients. And
Right.
that is a way to help you deal with it emotionally. Say, it's not me. It's not me causing this pain. It's not the fact that I'm billing for my time. They are not reasonable. And no matter who they work with, nothing will ever be enough. And
Right.
that's what I think is just the message that I'd like to get out to as many designers, because the C clients cause suffering and pain. They really do.
I have a question that kind of just brought something up. Corey, you
Sure.
might know this too. Do you know like from your database of which clients are C clients, and do you warn designers that they have a C client?
It's interesting. We have not looked at that. But that is an example of, what AI could do.
Right.
That is interesting. And we don't ask our clients to tell us who they think are A, B's, and C's, right? So we don't have that data, but that is a very interesting point. That probably could show some trends and maybe, who
Sure.
are the C
And
clients.
with their C client doesn't necessarily mean you can't work with them. You can still make money, but it lets you know how
Yes.
much emotional
Yeah.
investment to put into that client, lets you know how,
Yes.
maybe some strategies on how to talk to them.
Yes.
Because sometimes there are just people out there that you have to be blunt with.
You you're so right. A C client doesn't mean you can't work with them. It just means that, yeah, you have a totally different strategy, outlook, and there are ways you can protect yourselves. And so yeah, great point.
Yeah, that's great.
And don't get beat up by them, but, just take their feedback because they are still, it's still a client, but don't let that dictate the decisions that you make going
Right.
forward.
Yeah.
Right.
I have designers that kind of think of that as they're designers who want the full service experience of design. They understand what that is, and they're buyers. They just want the furniture.
Right. That's
And they
right.
just,
Yes. Okay.
that I would assume even it's not necessarily an attitude thing. It's more of like they just don't want the full service. They don't want the charcuterie
Yes.
board. They don't want to have champagne with you. They don't want the feeling of
True.
like we've created this mood board. They just
Right.
want give me the list of furniture to buy. I'll
Yes.
buy it. I want to kind of it's like a mix of DIY versus design in
Yeah,
some
it makes a lot of
respects,
sense.
because they don't value the design. Although I have seen clients that have come in not valuing design, and by the time they finish the process, and I'm not saying like mid process, like the very end when they see
Mhm.
like the results and they see that they really couldn't have achieved this without a designer, then
Right.
feeling like they will never not use a designer again. Those
Yes.
could transform into better clients down
I
the road.
agree with you. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So, basically, the the way we foster community is really we do monthly webinars,
Ooh.
and every month, Corey and I pick a topic that we share for free. It's a free webinar. We invite all of our clients to come, and then we invite as many designers as we can. That's our way of giving back and getting designers together. We have a topic that we discuss, but then there's interaction between the designers. Everyone's chatting to each other, and it's really just bringing one topic, that we think is important. In this new world of remote working, there aren't as many, physical get-togethers, which, we used to do that in the past, and I really enjoy that. But I think now really working remotely together, it seems to be what fits into everyone's schedule better. So, but every month we do, at least one free webinar where we're sharing these best practices and
Yeah.
getting the information out there because again, we feel that we have an obligation and we know that if everyone can play by the same rules, that everyone's lives will be better, more profitable, and less stressful. So we found, and the attendance has been wonderful, and the feedback that we get, the interaction is amazing. And so that's something Corey and I do every month. We really enjoy it. And that's our way of fostering community.
I love
Yeah.
that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that a lot of designers are incredibly interested in how what other designers are doing too. So hearing it
Absolutely.
from you is one, but also bringing in experts that maybe they
Yep.
don't even think of, like bringing in an attorney sometimes, bringing in
Yep.
a PR
Mhm.
agency to talk to them, where
Right.
they can get outside advice on, some of these topics, the business related topics that they're not
Right.
really getting. I mean, a lot of designers get if they go to design school, they get like one business class.
Right.
So I talked to I don't know how many designers that say that they wish they got a business degree and then just did a 2-year design school because it's
Yeah.
just so much that you need to know. And
Absolutely.
Yep.
they wish they had a better handle on the finance side, but you are that for them.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate it. Yeah, there really isn't much education out there on the business side, which is so unfortunate. And we just try to fill in that as best we can.
I love that. We try to do that through interior design community to a
Yeah.
lot of our topics. We do questions of the day and memes and polls and all of those things on the day to day, and then blogging and a lot of that is business related content because that's the questions that come
Mhm.
into us. We get
Yeah.
probably about 15 questions a day from designers, and they're usually business related questions.
I think what you're doing is amazing and so valuable. And
It's
the fact that
pretty
you do.
fun. I have to admit, I lucked into the like the best job in the world.
I mean, there's such a want and need for that kind of information for these designers, and I mean, you're an expert with the community side of it. Like it is such a community out there, and having them engage with one another is the best way to share information.
Yeah.
So we commend you for what
I
you've
think
done.
I think the one fun fact about all of that is not I mean, I know that the pieces of information, the advice that they get are really incredibly valuable, but honestly, it's like not it's that feeling of like not being alone in this that I think is the most
Absolutely.
valuable.
Right.
And other
That's
people are struggling with this too, because overwhelmingly, I think that what ends up happening, I'm sure you hear this all the time, is that they end up feeling like they're not doing a good job. Like that they're
that's
not
right.
made for the like this is something that they loved, they
That's
wanted
right.
to do, and they're so
Yeah.
passionate about it and they love the creative side and they actually do like dealing with people, but then they have these difficult clients, they have these difficult problems out of their hands, and then they start to feel like I'm bad at this,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and that you know, I don't know if I feel burned out, I don't know if I could continue doing what I love. And those two things are the hardest parts, I think, of this industry. I'm sure you feel that
Oh my gosh.
on
You've
them as
nailed it.
well.
That is absolutely the case. And we do tell our clients, like, you're doing an amazing job. Just to have a design business is an amazing accomplishment, right? Just to have one and to be functioning, it's so hard to do, right? And so when we work with a new client, first of all, yeah, we are amazed at whatever their business is. It's an amazing accomplishment. We just offer ways to make it better, but what they do is amazing. We just give a little bit of data, and help them learn and get better. But at the end of the day, what they do is so amazing on the creative side and the business side. Juggling both of those is just so complicated, and just keeping our designers confident and feeling good about what they're doing is so important
Oh,
because
love,
it
love
can be
I couldn't love
long.
that more.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm
definitely.
gonna quick question you about a few of the data points because I just think that's so from my perspective, that's super fascinating.
Sure.
What financial trends have you observed in the interior design industry in the last few years?
So I think the hot topic is flat fees versus
I
time
knew you were
billing,
gonna say
right?
flat
Because
topic.
when you look at a designer's business, it really comes down to design fees, product markup, and overhead expenses. Those are your three components,
Right.
Yeah.
right? That's it.
Yeah.
So your markup is your markup.
Right.
So the average we see is typically 25 to 30, right? And then your overhead expenses, I mean, the biggest numbers are payroll, rent, maybe sales and marketing. And those are easy to benchmark and give immediate feedback. It really comes down to the design fees, whether it's flat fees or hourly.
Right.
That is really the X factor in every design business that really can make or break, the profitability is that decision. And
Do you
so,
have a
yeah.
preference?
Yes. Well, so we have data. We don't have a preference, but we have
Okay.
data. So I try not to
Well said.
say you should do this or not do this.
Sure.
So I'll tell you what our data shows
Okay.
is that firms that use a flat fee model, it almost never fails. We've done thousands of calculations on this, where when you calculate how much time gets compensated in a flat fee model, it almost never fails. It's 30% of hours worked. It comes out to that almost every time. Right. Now, in an hourly model, the goal is to bill 80% for employees, 50% principal. So right out of the gate, you have a chance to get 2 to 3 times the flat fee. So now if you have a flat fee arrangement where you can get paid the same as time billing, then that's amazing. Like being able to do a flat fee is so much better than time billing. It's less time consuming. It's less, stressful. It's easier to explain. But here's the dilemma, and this is the biggest dilemma in this industry. The biggest dilemma that they have to deal with is the end client it's very difficult for them to digest before a job starts how much time and effort is going to go into that job.
Right.
Right.
It's not intuitive.
It's not intuitive. And they
No.
don't know that there's 20,000 steps that are about to be done. They don't know those 20,000 steps, right? So to get a client to agree to that fee before it starts is nearly impossible. I don't want to say I don't want to say it's impossible because maybe someone out there's done it. The data that we've seen is that it almost always comes out to around 30% of hours worked. So therefore, our income time billing designers consistently make more money than flat fees. So that's just what our data shows, and I will say every market's different. Some markets, second home markets are more flat fee oriented than time billing. So, it varies regionally, but
I also just want to caution really quick that just about all of this analysis is geared towards residential
Sure.
designers.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a little bit of a
Absolutely.
different story
High-end
for the
residential.
commercial.
Sure. Yes.
Yes.
And so one of the things I've been seeing, well, first of all, if you are going to do flat fee, there's so many caveats to that, right? So if you are going to do
Yes.
flat fee, you need to make sure you really are drilling down and dividing scope for sure.
Yes,
Mhm.
Because
absolutely.
that's where you'll lose your money,
Yes,
is you don't have the handle on scope.
that's right.
Secondly, I think that a lot of designers are moving toward, they're figuring out the flat fee versus hourly. You have to be the kind of person who can track your hours, and sometimes those
Yes.
designers just aren't going to be that. I mean, they have
I
to be
know.
like
It's
honest with
challenging.
themselves. Like, are they going to be a person who can track every hour and can make sure their employees have
Yes.
a system that will track every hour? Then do it. But if
Yes,
you
you're
can't,
absolutely
then
right.
you have to be in your wheelhouse. You got to make whatever you need to make.
I agree.
I do think that there is a case you made for the project management, which, I've had conversations with attorneys too, who are in some states, you don't want to call it project management, depending on the education background you have and the certifications you have. You might want to call it, something else. But
Yep.
basically what that is, that procurement side of it, that's billable hours too, and should be a
Yes.
separate bucket, financial bucket
Agree.
also.
Yes.
You're
Agree.
then with, of course, they have like, ideally, I think, this is just like a separate rant, but you watch interior designers, and I'm sure, Corey, you're on there too on Instagram. There's all these designers, and they have, even the smaller ones have usually about 1,000, 1,500 followers,
Mhm.
that they built
Yeah.
up over the course of time.
Yes.
And most of those are never going to be clients.
Right.
There's, I would say
Right.
even if statistically less than 0.5% are ever going to be clients for a designer that follow
Okay.
them. So I
Okay.
do think I think that there's a case you made that they should be making some money on product, just independent product,
Yeah,
separately,
absolutely.
because
Yeah,
these people follow them for their style, their knowledge of materials. They have a tremendous amount of knowledge of materials that the average everyday person has no idea. Like you and I, had we not been in this industry, would probably go into like restoration hardware and think it's like the best furniture ever.
absolutely. Absolutely, we would.
You know?
That's so true. But you
So
you
they
make a good point on the followers. I mean, we do see our clients really building up a huge following base. Product's a great idea, and just finding ways to leverage that, I
leverage
think
it.
it is really important and a
Yeah.
and a great point that you make.
In fact,
Yeah.
I'm gonna after this podcast, I've got like 3 or 4 different people I'm gonna introduce you to that I think would help designers in your community, and I think would be helpful
Thank you.
because I talk to a lot of people. Now,
Definitely.
are there specific KPIs that designers should be tracking to ensure their business growth? What are your favorites?
I'm sorry, to ensure their what business
They're tracking to ensure their growth in their own
growth?
firms.
Yes. So what I if you want to grow your firm, to me, the number one variable is referrals,
Okay.
happy clients. Now, everyone might, everyone gets clients from the internet, and you might, from certain activities that you're doing. And I'm not suggesting that, that designers don't get clients other than referrals,
No, you're right. No,
right?
I've polled designers too. 80% of their business usually comes from referrals.
Yes, and our clients, I think our biggest client does, let's just say 18 million in revenue. That's you know, they're an anomaly, but that's the biggest that we've seen. We work with clients anywhere from 1 million up is typically the size business that we work with, 1 million in revenue. But happy clients today provide new clients tomorrow, and service, great service, and just, happy clients is the key to growth.
Right.
So what I recommend is that designers do a survey after every project, because you want to know how you did, right? If
Yes.
you've got to know how you
You've
did,
got to
because
know.
you
Yes.
have to know, right? You have to know. And there's no more important information, right? And if you came up short, you want to know what that is, so that the next job, you fix that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I just think that at the end of the day, nothing will improve your business more than knowing how you did with your client. I just think that's so critical, and it's not really discussed, and it's something that isn't really thought about. But in this business, you got to know how to please your client. And and I will say, don't pay attention to the responses of the C clients,
Right.
right? They're going to give
Right.
you they don't count.
They don't
They're
count.
going to give you bad marks no matter what,
Yeah.
right? But the A's and B's clients who really care about you and want you to do well, they're going to give you some real valuable feedback. And if you can nail that process and make those changes over time, your business is gonna go like this over time.
I love that. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'll add to that because I have very strong marketing, is that absolutely pair that with an email list, please. Keep in touch with these people. Let them know that
Yes.
you're still have interesting things to talk
No,
about, valuable information, not just like here's an email every month checking in if you need more business,
I
but like
that
they
is such a
love
great idea.
like style and design. And so neat little things that you could talk about that would enrich their lives from a style perspective are
Well,
incredibly helpful and keep you top of mind for sure.
I think
Yes, it
that's a
just it
brilliant
serves as
idea.
a reminder. You
Yeah.
don't, we like to say don't be afraid to ask for referrals, but it's even more powerful if you don't directly ask. You just let that you remind them that you exist, that
And
remind them
you're
you did a
super
good job
cool
on their
and you're the coolest
project,
person
and
they
yeah,
know who does like really amazing
exactly.
things. And you're going to give them a little bit of that love every month where you're
Right.
giving them cool ideas
I
to
think
enrich
that's a
their
brilliant.
lives.
I
You
love
know,
that
like
idea. I
it's,
love that idea.
it
You're
could be
absolutely right.
something simple like you created a summer playlist for them
Mhm.
that would go with a really, or a recipe that you found that is
Right.
really interesting, or cleaning instruction for their, oh,
Yeah.
you're going to be opening up your deck, here's how to get your furniture
Right.
and set up correctly, or here's some
Right.
great accessories that you might be interested in for the summer, things like that they would perceive as helpful and
Right.
caring about them and keep you top of mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, you wanna be there when they have a need, and I think, hey, maybe circling back after 5 years when that furniture might be worn out, say,
Yeah.
"Hey, it's been 5 years." You can say, "Based on our data, some of your furniture might be, need to be reupholstered. Please let us know if you wanna replace anything or you need any ideas." And I think you make such a brilliant point. You want those clients for life,
Yeah.
right? And so much time and effort goes into each project that it's almost like no one has energy to go back to those clients.
Sometimes they
But
don't. Yeah.
but it but if you think of that as a strategy, you can dedicate resources to stay in touch with them. I think that's something that you had mentioned, just bring this up, triggered an idea in my head, like, wow, like what an opportunity, because when those clients, they have children, they have friends and relatives, you want to be on their mind when that next person, either themselves or someone has a project, they're going to immediately say, "Oh, you should talk to so and so."
Absolutely, because they got your
Yeah.
email this month. It's
Yes.
been helpful
Mhm.
to them. So, absolutely, it's those referrals that will come in that are incredibly helpful. This is the last big question I wanna ask you, but what does the data suggest about the average profit margins for a design project? I wanna get that out there because that's the most
For
important.
for a
What should it
project
be? Yeah,
for a
for the project.
project or a firm in total?
Let's do both.
Because You've got well, yeah. So you've got two profit margins. You have the gross margin percentage, which is simply the job profit before overhead,
Right.
right? So that's
Right.
gross margin or gross profit percentage. Then you subtract out the overhead. Then you have net income percentage, which is your bottom line profit as a percentage of your gross revenue.
Right.
That's how many cents on the dollar for every dollar that you bill are going into your pocket.
Right. Right.
That's the most important number,
That is.
right? That's the number. That is the number.
Right.
So basically what the way the economics work, and it varies region, but generally speaking for the country, 40% is a very healthy gross margin percentage.
Right.
Okay. So, so for example, if you build your clients $1 million, typically, to get a 40% gross margin, your cost would be 600,000 of project cost only, not overhead. So 1 million minus 600 would be 400,000. 400 divided by 1 million is a 40% gross profit or gross margin or job profit percentage. That number's critical. You really want to be at least 40. In San Francisco, we've seen that number exceed 50. For
That's
some reason, that market just has an appetite for paying more for fees. But generally speaking, if you're at 40 or higher, you're in a really healthy spot.
that's
Okay.
great.
Now, so then you just take your overhead, right? And typically the overhead is going to be in the 20% of gross revenue, which leaves 20 for the bottom line. Okay. That's kind of a gold standard best practice. I would say most designers typically are in the 10 to 15% range is what we typically would see. The gold standard is 20 to 30%. We have seen a couple 35% in San Francisco, which is really unusual, but it is possible. So, but generally speaking, I would tell a designer, if you're under 10, even having 5 to 10% is still a very successful, good business. That's not
Right.
bad. That's not a bad thing at all, right? It's a profitable small business is very positive. The good news is that there's an opportunity to make more money than you are so that you can get paid more for doing the work that you're doing. That's the way you need to look at it. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity.
Right. If they were in that position, they're in that 10%,
Yes.
what is your recommendation to them usually? Is it increasing
Yes.
the hourly fee, or is it increasing, like, adding on procurement, the other fees that might come on,
Yes. Great
maybe
question.
bumping up your profit on the markup, on the furniture
Great,
side?
great question. So it really comes down to those three components, right? The time, the design fees, the markup, and the overhead, right?
Right. Right.
Some designers just have too much overhead, right? So then they
Right.
just have to cut expenses. And designers who work out of their homes, they may have a lower percentage than others. That gives them a little advantage. Like maybe your net income's a little bit higher because, you don't have a big rent expense, things like that. But generally speaking, you just have to look at each one of those three buckets and see what the situation is. Most typically, there aren't enough time billing fees or flat fees, however you bill. That's typically what is lacking, that the designers not getting paid for the hours that they're putting into the projects. That's the number one problem. And then the second biggest problem would be, just too high of overhead, too high of rent, or maybe you have too many employees. The profit per employee is too low, where maybe you have one or two people who are really inefficient that's driving down, or you have employees that aren't good at time billing. So you kind of have to look to see where the problem is in one of those three and then dig in there. And then there's a story in there that you have to find, right? But
Mhm.
that's typically how we attack the problem, to find out what is the root
So you
cause.
help them drill right into
Oh,
that
absolutely.
problem so that
Absolutely.
they can identify it and hopefully teach, correct, and repair
Absolutely.
that problem for their business.
It's really like a doctor looking at an X-ray. I mean, I've looked
Yeah.
at so
Yeah.
many, when I first started doing it, it took me a while to figure out, where to go and how to find it. But we've been doing this for so long that
You
we
almost
can
can go
pretty
like, that's a red light right there.
yes,
Yeah, cool. Right.
exactly.
That is fantastic. Well, this has been
Yeah.
so enriching, I think, for
Well, thank
designers. I
you.
think that they're going to be blown away
Thank
by this conversation. I'm
thank
so
you so
excited
much.
that we're going to have you at High Point and be able
Yes,
to ask you all
we
these
appreciate
questions.
that.
If you are coming to High Point, you're going to want to come over and grab Mark for a minute and ask him his
Yeah.
questions. We might be doing a dinner together at High Point, so
Yeah.
let me know if you want to be on that dinner list, and you
Yes.
can drill him with some questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I enjoy hopefully you can feel I enjoy this. Like I love talking to designers about this. So it's such a pleasure to do what I do. I'm so thankful for the work that I can do every day. And I just think the value you're providing, Laura, this information is so helpful and is relieving stress and helping designers make more money. And that is so incredibly valuable. So I congratulate you on your amazing success and what you've
Thank
done.
you.
And
I
we're just so honored to be on your program.
Oh, that's awesome. I really honestly, I think that we're anyone who is lucky enough to work with designers, and if they're in the position, you have
Yeah.
worked with people who love designers after
Yeah.
they spent time working with them, and the ones that don't. And it's
Right.
very
Mhm.
clear you're on the side of you love the designers, and I
Yeah.
always gravitate to businesses where they, they've worked with designers, they understand the challenges, and they still love
Right.
them.
No, I appreciate
And
that. Yeah.
yeah,
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 we love to see designers succeed because, one of the main takeaways is this can be a highly profitable business
sure.
if
It's a
done
great
right.
And it's a
business.
rewarding
It's
business.
Yes,
You are helping
it
people's
is.
lives,
Yeah.
very
yes.
personally.
It's
So
it's great job. I mean, saying that because it's an amazing business. If you can get paid for your time, you can design till you're 90,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
it's an amazing business if you can just nail down these back office, seeing some of the numbers. It's an amazing and it's gonna keep growing and becoming more popular.
I
I
love
think
that.
yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you both very
Well,
much.
thank you.
Pleasure.
Sure.
Bye-bye.